Hello, everyone. Today we will take a look at the human body. The human body. There are two words that we use when we want to describe structures and functions of the human body, and we use those terms, the anatomy and physiology. Jot this down. Anatomy is the study of structures and shape of the body and its parts. So when we're talking about structural relations, we refer to these as anatomy, anatomical structures. When we're talking about how the body actually functions, this is physiology. So the study of the structures and functions of the human body is known as human anatomy and physiology. Okay, anatomy is the study of structures, physiology, the study of how the body and its parts work and function. Okay, so there are different levels for which we can study the body. We can study the anatomy from a gross anatomy standpoint. And at this level, we're studying large structures, those that are easily observable. Okay, so these are going to be our large anatomical structures that we can see quite easily. We refer to that as gross anatomy. Okay, likewise, we can also study the body from a microscopic standpoint. So microscopic anatomy allows us to study the very small structures within our bodies, right? These microscopic studies can only be seen with the microscope. So we're talking about parts of the bodies like our cells and so forth that can only be observed with the microscope, aided with the microscope, right? So this is microscopic anatomy. So you can just stop and think right now about the total makeup of the human body, and we know the levels of organization that our body contains, right? We know that our bodies are made up at the most basic level of cells. But if we went subcellular, you know that we've got atoms and molecules that actually make up the cells, right? We've talked about the chemicals that make up atoms, right? The chemical elements. We talked about the relationships between atoms and elements. And so the most basic unit of life for which all life forms originate is at the cellular level, okay? These cells are made up of these molecules here that we've talked about before, all right? And so the next level of cellular organization after the cell is tissues, okay? Cells organize and arrange themselves into functional structures known as tissues, okay? There are many different tissue types that exist within the bodies. For example, we've got smooth muscle tissue as an example. There are many different tissue types, all right? We've got epithelial tissue, we've got smooth muscle tissue, we've got connective tissue. And so we've seen some of this in our discussion about the animal structure, animal organization. And so we've got cells that make up tissues, and then these tissues make up organs, right? There are organ level structures, right? Organs are made up of different types of tissues, all right? So if you think about our heart as an organ, we have many different organs in our bodies, all that have very specific functions, right? And these organs in our bodies all work together in terms of an organ system, okay? Organ systems consist of different organs that work together closely, okay? So our bodies collectively are a group of organs working together as an organ system, which makes an entire organism or individual. So human organisms are made up of many organ systems, okay? For example, our cardiovascular system, which helps to circulate blood throughout our bodies. So we want to stop here and appreciate this level of organization, structural organization for humans. We've looked at this idea before, but we understand the structural levels of organization for the human is that the cell is the most basic unit, fundamental unit for life. Cells make up tissues. Tissues make up organs, okay? Different organs function together as an organ system. And an entire organism is made up of many different organ systems working together. So let's take a look at some of the organ systems that exist within our bodies, right? The first we'll start with is the integumentary system. This is what we commonly know as our skin, okay? Your skin is a very important organ system as it forms this external covering or barrier on our body, all right? It most certainly is the first line of defense for us maintaining our homeostatic environment, protecting us from foreign agents like pathogens and so forth. So long as our skin is intact, we have great defense against those things that can be potentially pathogenic. Okay, and so this is skin, this integumentary system protects our tissue from injury, protects it from drying out. So again, all of these factors that are going to help to maintain homeostasis for this individual. It's synthesizing vitamin D. It is the location of cutaneous nerve receptors. So when we're thinking about communication, feedback, and so forth, the skin is a major, major, major point of concern when we think about our body's physiology and function. Okay, so the integumentary system is our skin. Okay, super important as that first external barrier that covers and protects our internal tissues and organs and so forth. Okay. Next, let's take a look at the skeletal system. We're reminded that our skeletal system contains our bones, joints, and cartilages. Jot that down. The skeletal system is essential for locomotion or movement, right? This skeletal system basically provides this frame that protects and supports our internal organs, okay? So it's going to provide muscle attachment for movement. This is going to be the site of blood cell formation. It's going to store minerals. So there's a lot of very important things happening here at the level of our skeletal system. But most importantly, it's providing that support and protection for our organs, and it's helping us to move. Okay, so if you think about the number of bones and joints that are in our bodies, we understand why this skeletal system is important. Okay, we have a number of bones in our bodies, over 200 bones in our bodies that help to sustain us, okay, as a complete individual. All right, so that's our skeletal system. Next, we have our muscular system. All right, this muscular system, again, is going to facilitate that locomotion or movement. It's going to help to maintain posture. It's going to help to produce heat. All right, so again, our bodies are working hard all day to maintain this internal environment. All right, so our muscles are going to be quite important for this purpose. All right, it's going to allow for us to bend and move those joints and muscles so that we can move. Okay, nervous system. All right, our nervous system contains our brain, sensory receptors, spinal cord, and nerves. Okay, this is a fast acting control system. Okay, it's responding to stimuli, both internal and external. Right, it's what's going to activate our muscles and glands to do their respective jobs. Right, so our nervous system helps us to function as a being. We know that our brain is the powerhouse. Okay, so these receptors are present, okay, in order to respond to different sources of stimulus. Okay, so our nervous system is quite important. Our spinal cord, these nerves, they're all important for our bodies to be able to receive and communicate. Okay, so that cell-cell communication that takes place, these receptors are quite important. Okay, our nervous system. Next, we have the endocrine system. Okay, this endocrine system is quite important because it's secreting hormones. Okay, the endocrine system secretes regulatory hormones. And so this system is made of quite a few guys here. We've got the pineal gland, we've got the pituitary gland, we've got our thyroid up here, we've got the thymus, adrenal glands, pancreas, testes, ovaries. These are all very important organs that help to maintain and respond and keep our bodies balanced. Okay, so we're talking about things like growth, reproduction, metabolism. These are all features that are happening by way of this endocrine system. Okay, this thyroid, the thymus, the pancreas, they're all secreting regulatory hormones that helps our bodies to function normal. Okay, reproduction, we've got the male and female reproductive organs here, the ovary and the testes. These are very essential. Okay, metabolism, we've got our pancreas here that's going to secrete hormones like insulin and so forth to help regulate our blood sugar, to help maintain this balanced internal environment. The thyroid, also quite important. All right, I want you to be familiar with the components and members of each of these organ systems. I want you to be familiar with these organ systems and their overall function to sustaining human life. All right, the cardiovascular system. This system contains the heart and blood vessels. All right, the cardiovascular system is responsible for transporting materials in the blood via transporting materials in the body via pumping blood. All right, we've got oxygen, carbon dioxide, nutrients, waste. These are all being pumped through these blood vessels and veins that we have. So our cardiovascular system is quite important to us being able, again, to survive, right? We need oxygen. Oxygen is the most abundant element in our bodies, all right? And we produce carbon dioxide. And also these nutrient and waste are going to be critical in terms of being moved to their respective places throughout the body, removal from the body, quite essential. So this cardiovascular system is going to be critical for transport. All right, the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system works to return fluids to the blood vessels. It's going to dispose of debris and other waste products. It's involved in immunity. It is quite essential for identifying and ridding the body of pathogens, okay? Bacteria, tumor cells, things that are foreign and don't need to be there. This lymphatic system, okay, the thoracic duct, these lymph nodes, lymph vessels, they're all going to help to remove these potentially pathogenic or harmful agents through the body, okay? So the lymphatic system, quite important. Think about immunity. All right, our respiratory system. This is going to be the system that's responsible for keeping the blood supplied with oxygen. All right, so our respiratory system contains our nasal cavity, the pharynx, the larynx, the trachea, bronchus, and the lungs. All right, they're going to make sure that the blood is supplied with oxygen and it's going to remove this toxic carbon dioxide. So there's going to be a system of gas exchange taking place through our respiratory system. Okay, again, the components here are our nasal cavity, our nose, this pharynx, the larynx going into our throat. We've got a trachea, we've got these bronchi, and we've got lungs that are quite essential for us breathing, respiration, maintaining homeostasis again here. All right, keeping the blood supplied with oxygen, removing this carbon dioxide. So you're thinking about this gas exchange. Respiratory system is quite important, starting at our nose. Next, we have our digestive system. Okay, the digestive system is responsible for breaking down the foods that we eat. All right, this digestive process allows for nutrient absorption into the blood. And we know that this is a critical component for us, again, maintaining homeostasis. And we're thinking about processes such as cellular respiration taking place, the way in which our bodies release energy that's trapped in these food molecules. All right, this digestive system is going to contain the oral cavity, our mouth, the esophagus, the stomach, the small and large intestine, the rectum, and the anus. All right. So if we think about the processes that these foods undergo from the time we consume it or bite it in our oral cavity, that's where digestive begins. Digestion begins in our mouth with the mechanical breakdown of food in the oral cavity. Okay, our bodies are producing enzymes and so forth in our mouths to help digest this food and moving this food along into our stomach, intestines, and so forth, such that nutrient absorption can take place. Okay, this digestive system is also going to be responsible for eliminating waste. So now we're down into our colon, rectum, and anus. Once our bodies have obtained what we need from these food products, waste must then be eliminated. Okay, the indigestible materials must be removed from the body. Okay, all of these processes are a part of digestion. Okay, so we want you to understand the components of our digestive system, starting with the oral cavity all the way down to the anus. What are the roles of these members? Okay, the oral cavity, the esophagus, the stomach, right? The small intestine, the large intestine, the rectum, and the anus are essential for digestion. Digestion is going to be quite critical for this organism or individual to obtain energy, to obtain nutrients, and to remove waste. Okay. Urinary system eliminates nitrogenous waste. Your body generates urine, right, during that process of digestion. So our urinary system contains our kidney, ureter, urinary bladder, and the urethra. This mechanism for removing waste here eliminates nitrogenous waste. It's going to maintain acid-base balance, regulation of material. Again, these water and electrolytes, again, these factors that help to maintain this balanced equilibrium. Urinary system is quite critical for that. All right. Our kidneys must function properly. When this doesn't happen and it's unable to filter and eliminate as it should, an individual will need to undergo some external assistance via processes like dialysis. Okay. So when our kidneys and urinary system don't function properly, we've got to get some assistance because this filtration is quite essential for maintaining a healthy individual. All right. All right, let's look at the reproductive system. All right, the reproductive system. Reproduction is absolutely essential for maintaining the human species. All right, the production of offspring. All right, so the organ system, the organs that are present in the individual depends on whether or not we have a male or female. All right, let's start over here with the female anatomy. We've got these mammary glands over here in our breast. All right, these are going to be quite essential for breastfeeding. For mom down to the offspring, we've got the uterine tubes, we've got ovaries, uterus, and the vagina. It's all going to be quite essential for bearing a child and giving birth to the child, right? The male reproductive system contains the seminal vesicles, prostate gland, the penis, vas deferens, testes, and scrotum. These are all going to be quite essential components when you think about reproduction, containing the sperm that's necessary for reproduction. Okay. Over here in the female ovary, we have the where the ovum or eggs can be found that are necessary for production. So we know that reproduction takes place when there is union of the ovum and the sperm. The egg and sperm unite to form a zygote. Okay, and this zygote will continue to undergo stages of development into the embryo. Right, and so embryonic development will continue until this new fetus is ready to be delivered. All right, so these are all quite important components of the reproductive system. All right, seminal vesicles, prostate gland, penis, vas deferens, testes, and scrotum in the male makes up the male reproductive system. In the female, we've got our mammary glands, uterine tubes, ovaries, uterus, and the vagina. All right. It's quite essential for the production of offspring. Okay. Now we have certainly advanced in technology where we have alternative methods for reproduction or conception. Okay. Should there be any difficulty in a pair, there are alternative mechanisms or means for conceptions, like in vitro fertilization and so forth. But in the most natural sense, reproduction, sexual reproduction happens between the male and the female, and these organs are important for that task to be accomplished. Okay, so let's look at some other necessary life functions that takes place. Again, so we're talking about human anatomy and physiology. So not only is it important for us to be able to identify anatomical structures and so forth, we want to understand more also about how the body functions. Okay, let's look at maintaining boundaries, right? Keeping the body's internal environment distinct from its external environment, right? So our integumentary system, the skin, these membranes are going to be essential for this function, okay? This is a necessary job that has to occur, maintaining boundaries, all right? Movement and locomotion, okay? Locomotion, movement of substances. These things have to happen if we're going to maintain this balanced internal environment, okay? Responsiveness. We talked about this already as another characteristic of life, right? An individual must have the ability to sense and react to changes, to stimuli, right? If you are alive, there must be some degree of responsiveness happening, right? There's communication, there is feedback, right? This is happening at many different points within the body, at the cell membrane level, at the release of hormones and feedback that's happening. There's all types of instances where there is a potential source of stimuli, and your body needs to be able to detect, sense, and react. Okay. Digestion. Here we're understanding the essential function of metabolic activity. All right. The breakdown and delivery of nutrients. All right. We talked about this process happening. It starts in our oral cavity, the mouth, where mechanical digestion starts as we chew our foods, and these foods continue to make their way down into our stomach, into our intestines, and so that nutrients can be absorbed accordingly. So digestion is absolutely essential for the delivery of nutrients and acquiring or maintaining energy levels. Metabolism, again, all metabolism in general refers to all of the chemical reactions that are taking place within the body. As we already understand, the process of aerobic respiration, cellular respiration, is how our bodies are going to acquire energy, okay? This energy is necessary for all of life's processes, from, making body structures, reproduction, responding to stimuli. All of these features require an input of energy, okay? So metabolism is going to be essential. We've talked about different types of metabolism. We've got catabolic pathways, we've got anabolic pathways that are all going to be essential for maintaining this balanced equilibrium, all right? Some other necessary life functions: excretion, right? We've got to be able to eliminate these waste products that are the result of metabolic activity, all right? Our bodies are going to digest, break down what we need, and then we need to be able to eliminate the rest, right? This is going to be critical. We've got to get rid of those things that we don't need. Other necessary life functions: certainly there's reproduction, right? Reproduction is necessary for the production of future generations, all right? Reproduction is also necessary to provide new cells for growth and repair. So not too long ago, we looked at these processes of reproduction. We looked at how our bodies generate new cells through cell division. We talked about the cell cycle, right? So we're producing new cells for we understand that our cells do not have an infinite lifespan, okay? And so our bodies must have the capability to produce new cells for continued growth and repair. All right, those somatic cells are going to be generated during the mitotic cell division, during mitosis. All right, we've got to be able to produce cells for reproduction, sexual reproduction, and these gametes, right? These sex cells are generated during the sexual process known as meiosis. All right, so we've talked about growth. We've talked about mitosis and meiosis as a necessary cellular activity for reproduction and sustaining life. All right, growth, increasing of cell size and number. So again, we're producing more cells as our bodies require them, and our bodies also undergo different stages of development. These are essential life functions. Survival needs, quite essential. We have to have nutrients, all right? These are going to be the building blocks for energy and cell building, which is the fundamental unit of life, right? These nutrients are going to include those carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, and other vitamins and minerals that our bodies require, right? We know that we have a requirement for a certain minimum set of nutrients for all living things, all right? Oxygen. Oxygen is absolutely required for sustaining human life. It's going to be required for these chemical reactions, all right? We need oxygen in order for cellular respiration to take place. So you should be able to identify what are some of the survival needs of the human. We absolutely need nutrients. We absolutely require oxygen, all right? Water. There's no doubt about it that water is a requirement to sustain life, okay? Up to 60% of our body's mass or weight is water, okay? It provides lubrication of our organs. It's providing water for these metabolic reactions to take place. It's going to help to stabilize our body temperature. It's going to involve itself with atmospheric pressure in order to, again, maintain homeostasis, all right? The presence and availability of water is absolutely essential. I think we can all recall a time where we may not have been properly hydrated and our bodies had some type of feedback mechanism, okay? Be it a headache, being tired, lethargic, your skin looks a little bit different, all right? When you're dehydrated, when your body is not properly hydrated, there will be negative fallout, okay? Water is absolutely essential for metabolic activity, maintaining a stable body temperature, and so forth. So we're looking at essential survival needs for the human, all right? I've been mentioning this term homeostasis, right? Homeostasis is absolutely an essential requirement for life, right? Being able to maintain a stable internal environment, right? We're attempting to maintain this dynamic state of equilibrium, right? Your body has mechanisms built in, okay, that is going to work constantly to maintain this normal state of equilibrium. Homeostasis must be maintained for normal body functioning and to sustain life. No question about it, okay? Homeostatic imbalance is a disturbance in homeostasis resulting in disease, okay? So when things are off balance, when there's a deficiency, these are what lead to disease, okay? Maintaining homeostasis is basically relying on our bodies to communicate, okay? These different organs and sensors and receptors, cell communication, hormones, okay? The body communicates through neural and hormonal control systems, okay? So we've got sensors that responds to changes in the environment, okay? When a certain ligand binds its receptor, it's gonna signal for a signaling cascade to begin, and information will be transferred that way, and a response will take place, all right? We need to understand, how does this homeostatic process occur? It occurs through a number of different pathways, right, that are involved with maintaining homeostasis. There's signaling and feedback taking place. we've got these control centers in place by way of these regulatory hormones, neurons, and so forth. All right. The control center is going to be responsible for determining a set point, analyzing what's happening, and determining what's going to be our appropriate response to what's going on in our environment. Okay, so we've got this control center, and then we've got this effector, right, which is going to provide a means for responding to our stimulus. Right, so our bodies are quite smart. Okay, these are things that our bodies are doing naturally every day, working quite hard, quite diligently to maintain this balanced equilibrium. Okay, so homeostasis again refers to these, what we'll call the stable operating conditions in this internal environment. Okay, there are three components that are constantly interacting together, right? When there is a stimulus, right, there's going to be a receptor, an integrator, and then the effector, which is going to help to mount the response. Okay, the response to the stimulus is going to lead to some type of change. Okay, we refer to this change as feedback. Okay, if there's negative feedback, there's going to be a system cancellation happening that's going to counter the effect of the original stimulus. But we can also have positive feedback, right? That's going to continue to sort of exacerbate what's happening. All right. Negative feedback includes most homeostatic control mechanisms. It's going to shut off the original stimulus or reduce its intensity, right? And it's going to work sort of like a household thermometer that comes on. You have this a sort of optimal temperature that we want to kind of keep things, keep the house at. And when this doesn't happen, signals are sent when the temperature changes in order to correct, okay, the deviation from what we consider the norm. Okay. So we see this system here where we've got the brain as the control center, right? We've got receptors that can send information to the brain, and the brain will then mount a response. These effectors are going to be here to help mount the response in order to maintain or restore this normal homeostatic balance. Okay. Positive feedback. So again, we've got two types of feedback here that we want you to be familiar with here as we consider maintaining homeostasis. A positive feedback is going to increase the original stimulus, right? And it's going to push that variable further in the direction for which it's going, right? So you think about giving birth to a baby, right? These contractions and so forth are going to continue to increase and signal for the dilation to continue and the movement of this baby through the birth canal. That's a positive feedback mechanism. Okay, so again, we have this system here where our brain is the control, right? We've got an initial stimulus, okay? This woman is ready to deliver. So there's going to be receptors here that receives this signal for the stretching or widening or opening of this uterine wall. Okay. The stimulus is relaying it to the brain. The brain is going to now be stimulated. Oxytocin is going to be transported to the target tissues, which are essentially going to cause these effectors to jump in to increase these contractions, to make this uterine wall contract more. These contractions are essentially going to lead to changes or distortions in this uterus such that this child can get through this birth canal. Okay. So that's maintaining surviving. Let's look at some terminology. Let's look at some of the language that is used to refer to anatomical structures, the anatomy. Okay. Special terminology is used uniformly to prevent misunderstandings. So there are exact terms that we use globally to indicate position, direction, regions, structures of the anatomy so that there's no confusion. Okay, let's look at some of these terms. We have terms for orientation and direction. Okay, superior, inferior. Okay, superior, a structure that is superior, are going to be in the above, towards the head or the upper part of the body. Whereas inferior structures are going to be below the head, okay, toward the lower part of the body. Anterior and posterior. Anterior means the front, at or near the front of the body. Posterior means towards the back side of the back of the body, okay? Medial. Medial is towards that middle of the body plane, okay? On the inner side, okay? So we say that the heart is medial to our arms, right here in this midplane, okay? The heart is posterior to the breastbone, right? Remember we talked about that skeletal structure that surrounds and protects our organs? This breastbone covers our heart. The breastbone is anterior to the spine. Anterior means it's going to be to the front, all right? The navel is inferior, below, at the bottom. Inferior, below the breastbone, okay? The forehead is superior to the nose. Yes, our forehead is above our nose. It would behoove you to understand these orientation and directional terms. Other terms: lateral, intermediate, proximal, distal, superficial, deep, okay? Take some time and understand where these orientation and directional terms refer to. Lateral, away from the midplane, okay? The arms are lateral to the chest on either side, okay? Intermediate, between a more medial and a more lateral structure, okay? The armpit is intermediate between the breastbone and the shoulder, kind of like in the middle, okay? Proximal, close to the origin of the body part or the point of attachment of a limb to the body of the trunk, okay? So the elbow is proximal, okay, to the wrist. Distal, further away, okay? The knee is distal to the thigh. It's further away from the thigh. Oops. All right, so let's look at some landmarks. All right, we've got some body landmarks at the anterior. Remember we said anterior means the front, okay? We've got the nasal, we got our nose, we've got the oral cavity. All right, we've got the thoracic muscles. We've got so many structures and anatomical structures that are anterior. They're on the front, okay? The femoral, fibular, tarsals, your leg, okay? Digits, umbilical, abdominal. These all refer to anterior body landmarks, okay? Buccal, mouth, okay? Posterior landmarks, okay? Occipital, okay? Gluteal, femoral, lumbar, vertebral. These are all going to refer to a posterior landmark. Body planes, okay? Medium, frontal, transverse, okay? These planes give us some orientation, all right? We've got our brains. We've got a mid-sagittal, down the midplate, frontal, plane, transverse planes. We've got cavities, right? These body cavities, the dorsal body cavity, right? We've got this cranial cavity, right? We've got a thoracic cavity, diaphragm, abdominal cavity, pelvic cavity, spinal cavity, all right? We've got those that are considered to be dorsal and some that are considered to be ventral. Okay, we've got abdominopelvic quadrants here, upper right quadrant, upper left quadrant, lower left quadrant, lower right quadrant. Major organs in our abdominopelvic system is going to be our lungs, our liver, the intestines, rectum, spleen, stomach, heart. Okay, major organs here. lungs, heart, liver, stomach, spleen, large intestines, small intestines, and the rectum. All right. This is another diagram that shows some of our abdominal pelvic quadrants and regions. And we're going to stop here. So this overview today of the human anatomy and physiology was aimed to highlight the anatomical and physiological functions and structures of the human body. We identified some terminology. We identified mechanisms that must be in place for normal survival. We identified survival needs, structures, and what their functions are. We're going to stop here. Have a great day.